Hi, welcome back to step 1. This is our second episode, and this will be the second part of our discussion about safer needle use. In our first episode, we discussed the needle exchange kits, the components of the kit, and why it is so important not to share any of those components with anyone else. Today we'll be talking a little bit more about risks of needle use, even if it's only one person using them, especially related to bacterial infections and reusing equipment. So why is this important? It's because all of us have a lot of bacteria normally living on our skin. The average person has about 1 trillion, that is 1,000,000,000 bacteria living on their skin. For the most part, this doesn't cause us problems. They just live there. Sometimes they actually are helpful to us. But if those bacteria get through the skin into our systems, they can make us quite sick. So in this regard, one of the first steps that we talk about is the importance of washing your skin before using needles. Within the kits, there are these alcohol swabs to use cleaning the skin. When you're washing the skin, it's really important to wash in one direction. If you're just kind of going in circles, you're just moving the bacteria around. It's also really important then not to touch the skin with anything that is dirty. So your finger, for example, if you've washed the skin and then touch it with a dirty finger, you could add bacteria onto the skin again. With that number I was just mentioning, about a trillion bacteria, that means that in 1 square centimeter, about the size of your pinky fingernail, that's about 10,000 bacteria. So even a few of those can cause a lot of problems. One is in terms of just introducing bacteria into the bloodstream just with the injection itself. The second is with reusing needles. So as we talked about last time, even if you don't see the blood, if just a few drops of blood end up on the needle, inside the needle, and there are bacteria within them, they can reproduce. Bacteria reproduce, that is, make babies by splitting in half. So one bacteria splits in half to make 2, each of them splits in half, another 2, and so on and so forth. A lot of the bacteria that live in our skin in perfect conditions will reproduce every 20 to 30 minutes. That means you can go from having 2 to 4 to 8 and so on very quickly. So within 8 hours, which is a pretty typical length of time that someone might take between using a needle one time and using a second time, if only 2 bacteria got into a drop of blood in that needle in perfect conditions, in those 8 hours, 16 million bacteria could be within those few drops of blood. Then the next time you use that needle, you're basically injecting all those millions of bacteria into your bloodstream all at once. Sorry about that, my dog is excited about something. You can probably hear him in the background. Why is it a concern about injecting all those bacteria into your bloodstream? Well, one of the big issues is something called endocarditis, which is an infection of the heart. So all those bacteria rush into your bloodstream, and the very first place they hit is your heart. Look at these close-up pictures for more details. So if we look at this picture of the heart, you see your heart is a muscle. It's about the size of your fist, with these blood vessels coming in and out of it. Looking at this view of the heart cut open, you see that the blood from your body enters this side of your heart, and so it goes top to bottom, gets pumped out to the lungs, comes back in from the lungs, top and bottom on the left-hand side, and out through the aorta to your entire body. Now you see these little things here are called valves. The idea of the valves is it stops blood from backwashing where it came from, so that it kind of keeps flowing around the system in an effective way. This one here shows a little closer up view of what these valves look like. So they're just thin little strips of tissue that are anchored down, and they're pushed open with the force of each heartbeat and then close up in between. Bacteria land on those valves. It causes this infection called endocarditis. They can cause growths on the valves themselves or start chewing holes through the valves so that they're damaged. If these growths grow, they can be pretty big, 1 or 2 centimeters in size, hanging off of those valves. And those things could then break off, get into your system, and land anywhere else in your body. We see here, these are the veins from your arm, or these are the ones from your neck. And so if you're injecting, especially into the neck veins, within a few seconds, that blood is right in the heart. Same thing with the arms. Within seconds of injecting into the vein, that blood passes through the heart. And if we go back to the inside cut open picture of the heart, we see that when the blood comes into your system, the very first place it passes is that tricuspid valve of the heart. So that's the first place that bacteria can really land when they get into your system. And that's why in people who are IV drug users, the most common place to get that endocarditis infection is here on the right side in the tricuspid. And now I'll show you a view of an actual heart cut open for dissection. Warning, this is a, actual tissue picture. And it's a little hard to see, but this is the tricuspid valve here. Instead of being nice and smooth as it should be, it's got all these infection growths on it. This picture is from over 50 years ago. So presumably this person died of that endocarditis infection. Back to these pictures of the inside of the heart. These infections can be quite serious and can cause quite severe damage to the heart. If not treated properly, they can be life-threatening. And so it's very important, if you think you might have one of these infections, to get checked out early. So if you have a fever that just won't go away, if you're getting weird bruises and spots, night sweats, otherwise just feeling really unwell, get checked out, because there are many different things that can cause this. But in IV drug users, probably 1 in 10 that has a pretty serious fever, it could be related to this infection of the heart valves called endocarditis. And the treatment is 6 weeks of IV antibiotics to properly get rid of that infection and allow your body a chance to heal up. Now, if those bacteria don't stop on the heart valves, they can keep on going in your system, and all those bacteria can pass through your system to other places that your blood flows. And so some of the other more common risky places to get infections are in the bones or in the spine. And so this can sometimes be a combination of spinal osteomyelitis and discitis. The disc is the soft jelly bit between the bones of the vertebrae in your spine. So that can be within the neck or within the lower back. The bacteria, a whole bunch of them land in there and start growing in. They came in through the bloodstream, they land in the bone, and then they start growing and growing and growing, causing pretty serious infections and damage in those areas. They can also cause a general infection called bacteremia, which is bacteria growing in the bloodstream, or even sepsis, which is when your body gets super sick and starts shutting down from that bacteria overwhelming your entire system. So for all these reasons, you obviously don't want to be injecting large numbers of bacteria into your bloodstream. So be really careful about washing your skin and not reusing needles. The second important topic related to risks with reuse is related to the cotton filters. So as we showed you last week, within each of the cooker's packages, there is one little filter. A lot of these packs will also come with an extra bag of extra cotton filters. So what is the risk with reusing the cotton? It is something called cotton fever. Cotton, even though it just looks like this fluffy stuff, starts off on plants, a little bit like this. This is Arctic cotton, so the cotton that's used for cotton clothes or for cotton, the cotton balls, is a slightly different plant, but same kind of idea as this, right? It's a plant that has these fibers that are picked and then spun down and made into clothes, cotton balls, whatever. And so living on that plant can be a bacteria called Enterobacter agglomerates. Not important to remember that. However, that bacteria can make a chemical, a toxin that can make people sick. And so when cotton balls are made, they're sterilized typically to kill all those bacteria. But if you use it once, it gets wet, you leave it sitting for a day or two, and then you use it again. In that time period when it's been wet and warm, those bacteria can start growing again. Those bacteria make that toxin that is then, there are many bacteria making all that chemical toxin sitting on that cotton ball. And then when you reuse that cotton ball for whatever reason, trying to get the last little bit out of it, whatever, you're injecting all that toxin into your system. And that gives that almost immediate, pretty serious reaction. So cotton fever is basically within 10 or 20 minutes typically of injecting, having a really high fever. It can be as high as 39, 40 degrees Celsius or 100, 104 Fahrenheit. Really bad shakes, bad stomach pains, vomiting, bad headache, a really horrible reaction that comes on too soon for it to be withdrawal, but can be quite intense. Cotton fever is basically your body's system reacting quite strongly to that toxin released from that bacteria that was on that cotton ball. The reaction usually lasts for a few hours up to a day. There aren't any specific treatments for it, but there are things that we can do to help you feel better. However, it's really important to know that these same type of symptoms, really high fever, shakes, stuff like that, can also be because of one of those infections we described earlier, the bacteremia, the infection in your bloodstream. And that's something super important that you don't want to be missing. So if you have a reaction like this and it lasts, don't sit at home and think it's just cotton fever. You could have a serious life-threatening infection in your system. Go get checked out for that. In summary, you don't want bacteria in your bloodstream, right? So wash your hands, wash your skin, use clean needles, etc. if you are going to be injecting, and don't reuse your cotton filters. If you have any more questions about this topic, please leave them in the comments down below. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. Please come back next week. We'll be talking about the different components of blood and how people can be iron deficient or have anemia. If you have any other questions or topics you'd like us to cover, please leave them in the comments section down below or on our Facebook page. There'll be a link in the comments down below as well. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.